Here's a few news articles that I thought were interesting. You'll find them on my website. I click on news. So this has been a dark future thing that people have thought of, is that we're going to have robots enforcing laws, and the result is stupid laws will be enforced that don't really matter. And it's interesting, I'm not quite sure what to think of this. So they turned on, like a traffic camera, they turned on an AI camera to see if you're doing illegal things in your car, in particular to see if you're not wearing your seatbelt or if you're using a cell phone while driving. It would take pictures of you. The pictures would then be reviewed by people, and they found lots of these British people doing bad things, like what you see here. This guy's texting, and the other person is steering who's not sitting in the driver's seat, and I'm sure that's illegal. Apparently these things are all illegal, so it's interesting to see. They're going to send some of these people warnings, some of them tickets, and, you know, this is... perhaps it will make us safer, and perhaps it'll just turn us into Big Brother society where there are robots noticing every little thing you do that isn't right until it drives you nuts. Thank you, Jay Carroll. Yeah, well, I don't feel too bad, but I'm going to get Paxlovid later tonight, so I should be all right. So this is important for this class. I think I'm going to put this one off until later, so I'm having the official part of the class. But this, what is this garbage? Okay. All right, this was very interesting. Risky Biz is a very fun podcast and a very good newsletter, and they've got a very good analysis here of the collapse of a cryptocurrency crime gang. For sort of amazing problems. These guys seem to have been collapsing. Now, what most cryptocurrency, or not cryptocurrency, crypto lockers, ransomware, what most ransomware crime gangs do is they infect you, they steal your data, then they demand payment to give the data back, then they demand more payment to not publish the data. But what a lot of them do is publish the data in torrents, which is what you do if you don't really have enough storage on a web server to store all the data, and you don't want to have a central location where the cops can take it down. But this one group here called Lockbit, their whole thing was you would have to give them 20% of your payout to join their club, and then they would host your data at a central stable server, which somehow is considered to be a major advantage. But it's turned out that they have run out of storage space on their server, and they can't figure out how to get more, which is kind of unbelievable. But they've been faking storage, and they've been losing. Their developers are not able to write the new versions of the ransomware on time, and when they get them, they don't work and stuff like that. So they just seem to be completely collapsing. So it's an interesting story about the crime ecosystem doing very badly. There's a new DNS cache poisoning attack called the Maginot Line, and it is pretty interesting, and I'll probably talk more about it in the DNS security class that happens tomorrow. But here's a variety of attacks. There was a really old attack from like 2002, and they found a way to bring this really old attack back. And the problem is there is a defense in DNS where you have to have the cache-puref attack. To mitigate it, you do it by in bailiwick, which means if you have an answer section and it doesn't come from the same domain as the requested name, it's not accepted. And this turns out to be a mitigation that they can easily get around. All right. Anyway, so we'll talk more about that tomorrow, but it is interesting. And it turns out something like 30% of all DNS servers are vulnerable to this, and they're in the process of distributing patches and such. I haven't seen a proof of concept. I would like to set it up and make it a project if it's not too hard to set up. All right. So this is pretty amazing. Microsoft Windows is just amazing, very frustrating to use. I mean, I haven't lived on it in years. I used to teach Windows tech support, and I finally switched to a Mac, and life is so much better. And it's just amazing how many stupid things Microsoft does with their product. Their password hashing is a disgrace, 30 years out of date. Just many things. And here's a new one. You may have noticed, I've noticed all the way back to Windows XP that Microsoft can't make a wristwatch. Windows servers cannot keep time. You'd have a room full of, I had a lab full of Windows XP machines, and a bunch of them will have like the wrong date and time all the time. And I'm like, how can they be so terrible at this? But they really are, and they found a way to be even worse now. For some ungodly reason, they decided to have some kind of feature in case you have bad networking and you lose connection to the network for a while. It will try to fix the clock by using the following process. It will make random TLS connections to places, and it will look at a field in the TLS response called the Unix epoch, which is supposed to be the time. However, large populations of TLS servers, including OpenSSL, do not fill that field at the accurate time. In fact, they fill it with a random number. So what people find is some small number of your Windows servers, like 20 out of a fleet of 400 or 4,000, will randomly set their clock like a month or a year in the future or the past, which is a disaster for a great many applications like database servers and other things. And it's amazing. Just like Microsoft can't make a search engine, in every version of Windows, if you click the Start button and search for something that is, for example, on the Programs menu or on your C drive, it very often cannot find it because Microsoft can't make a search engine, and they can't make a wristwatch either. It's just amazing. Anyway, it is very interesting to talk about how they found it, how they tracked down the problem, and so on. So, yeah. Oh, don't worry about the waiting list for the DNS class. I'll let everybody in that wants to get in. And you can do all the work remotely if you like. Thanks for the good wishes. I guess you people got my message that I'm staying out here because I got COVID, which is fine. I don't want to spread it to anybody. All right. So this Scott Galloway is a very interesting guy. I highly recommend listening to his podcasts like Pivot and Prof G. But he's a very interesting business guy and a college teacher, a pretty crazy, rebellious college teacher. And anyway, Elon Musk didn't like what Scott Galloway said about him, so he locked him out of Twitter, apparently. And he does this a lot. He just throws links to the New York Times to put a big delay on them and such. And he says he's a free speech absolutist, but that's until you say anything he doesn't like, and then he kicks you off or silences you or muzzles you, which is usually what anybody that says they're a defender of free speech means, is I should be allowed to say anything, and anybody I don't like has to shut up. Anyway, it's the latest nonsense here. And I just thought it was interesting. I want to remind you, you should probably follow this guy, Scott Galloway. You should track down his stuff. It's very interesting. And so, this is an important thing to know about the Gartner hype cycle. If you don't know about it, you have technology starts, and then it gets hotter and hotter, and then there's the peak of inflated expectations. When people just think it's going to do awesome things, then people realize it's not so great and it's not living up to all the hype, and then there's a trough of disillusionment as everybody turns against it, deciding that this thing must be no good after all, and then the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity as you sort of grow up and say, well, it wasn't the solution to every problem, but it wasn't completely terrible, and now it settles down to just be another thing like everything else that has some use and some limitations. And now Gartner says generative AI is at the peak. It is insane. Everybody is putting AI in everything. People are throwing venture capital money at anything with AI in the name to a ridiculous extent. And people are beginning to notice the limitations of AI more and more. So I think that's a fair statement. Generative AI like ChatGPT is at the peak of inflated expectations. Like about a month ago, they said everybody's going to lose their job. We're all going to be fired. AI will do everything. And now all you have to do is use AI for a while, and you find out how much it doesn't work that well at all, which is, again, very relevant to what's going to happen in this class. All right, it's time to get to the official stuff. Let me stop this one.